Joining us now in the studios is the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Mississippi, Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Gerard. We broke out of the Senate here. They're having some hearings, so we broke out here during lunch, and we'll be right back down there. I think next one, is at 1 or 1:30.
Been pretty busy lately.
It's been really busy and very productive. I mean, we have addressed, it used to be the old saying, nobody does anything in an election year. Well, that doesn't apply to us, or at least our group. We have been teeing up everything, and been really a tremendous session so far, and we're clipping right along. We had our deadline day yesterday, got most everything back to the that needed to come out to the House, and the things that we had to address for them. So now we'll be going to conference on those bills, and we'll now start the appropriations process, and Senator Briggs Hobson will be starting that this afternoon. He's had a meeting a little bit ago, and now he is whole meetings, I think, beginning at 2, starting on the appropriation process. So I encourage everybody to watch and want your comments and whatnot.
Feels like you guys may finish a couple of days early.
Planning on it. We always try to save taxpayer money. We're allocated 90 days. I'm going to be surprised if we come anywhere near close to that. So we'll cut back on the number of days we're in session and try to do the people's business in an orderly and expeditious way.
And then it's off to campaign, right? It's coming up.
Yeah, everybody goes to campaign. A lot of our senators, thank goodness, didn't draw any opponents and whatever, so they'll have a little bit easier time. But, being a senator, or certainly in a statewide office, but being a senator is pretty much a year-round thing now. Most of our people have meetings with constituents about different things. There are issues around the state. Rural hospitals have issues. Roads and bridges have issues. You'll see these, and my senators will be having meetings with people all over, whether they have an opponent or not. And during the year, then we really like to have committee meetings. Gerard, you've seen that. We had insurance. We have everything from insurance to appropriations committee meetings. We had Nicole Boyd did a great job this year on looking at after post-Dobbs what we were going to do, and we have a number of different bills that affect children that have come out of the Senate based on those meetings. So you'll see sometime right after the session we do take some time and look at what we need to do next year, and then they'll start having hearings about whatever the issue may be. Obviously, rural hospitals will be one of them. There'll be others, and we'll have hearings during the year. Workforce development, I talked to Senator Parker's done a great job with that. The Accelerate program, met with Ryan Miller this morning, what they're doing, which is just really expedited people being able to identify what the jobs are and how you get educated for them. So there'll be a lot of meetings about that. Our career coaches have been rave reviews. And so you'll see career coaches out in schools all over Mississippi.
Yeah, we were down at the Construction Education Foundation skills competition yesterday. We talked to Ryan Miller on the program and a couple of folks from Department of Education. That program seems to be going well.
It is, and what we used to be a little bit more scattered, quite frankly, than we needed to be. Like the SWIP board was like 42 people on it, and you had boards when you were in private industry, and so a board needs to be the right size, and we had one too big, so we right-sized it to 7. The governor got some appointments. I got a couple. We put some really good people on there. They hired Ryan, and then we started really looking at and identifying in each of 8 ecosystems around the state. It's been divided into 8 spots. What are the needs, employment needs in this area? And it may be the timber industry in one, it may be cars in another one, it could be ships on the coast. Mm-hmm. What are the needs? What is the economic part? And are we training in the community colleges to meet that need? And, of course, nursing is part of it and a bunch of others. But they really have accelerated the gap, accelerated the process to get to a really well-paying job. And then this career coaches is a part of that, where our kids have the opportunity to see, do they want to do X or Y, or go to a university or go to a community college for part-time. But where are you headed, and how can we get you there the most economic way? So we're real pleased. And some of our community colleges have come along where they're doing tuition free now. If you take 15 hours at homes, he's done a great job. So we're really pressing along to make sure that anybody that wants to get an accelerated education can get one in Mississippi.
Yeah. So something that just recently happened that came out of the Senate, went to the House, got passed is the postpartum Medicaid coverage expansion. That's now headed to the governor's desk. He has signaled that he would, in fact, sign that. I had a conversation with Senator Blackwell last night, who, of course, is a leader on health care in the Senate. And we were just talking about just thinking out of the box. How can we address this problem of uninsured, uncompensated care, undercompensated care, which is causing financial difficulty for almost all of our hospitals, not just the rural ones.
Yeah.
I just feel like, Lieutenant Governor, we need to assemble, and I've said this on the show before, folks from a broad spectrum of stakeholders. Because this is something that affects a lot of people, not just those in the healthcare industry, not just those in the legislature, to, say that, hey, nothing's off the table. Any ideas are welcome. Let's coalesce around some that maybe makes sense to address this issue.
Well, you shouldn't have said that, because I'm going to point you to the committee. But you're exactly right, Gerard. That's where we're headed. This year, we allowed for community hospitals to merge together, and I want to talk about that a little bit. And rural Mississippi is just the heart of Mississippi, and that's where our heartbeat lies, and we need to make sure that it is taken well care of. So we had a group of individuals. We gave appropriated $80 million to keep the hospitals basically afloat. Then we passed a bill that allows these community hospitals to aggregate and share services and then allocate what their delivery of services is. And I met with the head of the Covington and McGee hospitals. Now, both of those were going bankrupt for a long time.
Right.
And this particular individual has merged the two of them together. They actually are doing well. And where he may have had 5 radiologists, he can use 3, and they station them between Collins and up the road in McGee, and they actually are doing well. So this concept that we can deliver services accurately enough, maybe not full-time everyday services, but accurately enough that you can get service during a week's period, and that we can do that with a consolidated delivery service, has been done in Mississippi in those hospitals, and that is, I think, a recipe for the rest of us to look at. So we're passing that bill this year, and we're giving some money to keeping the hospitals basically afloat in the interim period.
But don't you feel like that's just short term, though?
It is, because what the big thing is, and you're right on this, is that we have to decide what is rural delivery of healthcare going to look at, and who's going to deliver it. Now, you've got these FQHCs out there, these federally qualified health systems out there. You've got hospitals like Greenwood that basically the structure is too large for what the population is. I've been working with them. I went to that hospital. I walked those halls with those people. I have come up with a way, I think, to repurpose part of the hospital in a medical way. We've had the people go look at that. I had them come and go through the hospital with them, and that's making progress to repurpose some of that hospital to do some psychiatric work, quite frankly. And that will keep a lot of jobs, and it'll also keep the infrastructure going. But we will have a committee this next year that will study how we're going to deliver health care. What is the standard of care in Mississippi? Now, I have some basics in my own mind, and of course we'll see how the group comes out with it, but I want emergency room care within 20 to 30 minutes of every human in Mississippi. So I want you within 20 minutes to be able to get to an emergency room. That will cover a lot of different things. Then that primary health care services, those internal medicine and OBGYN are really, really important. The others can be structured to be there at different days and coordinated with other hospitals and stuff. So that delivery itself and how it goes about is going to be critical. I'm really encouraged. I met with, I think, 5 or 6 hospitals yesterday. I went over their budgets with them, big and large. You'd know the names, rural hospitals and big ones. All of them were negative numbers.
Yeah, all negative cash flow.
One in Greenwood, they gave me the financial. I don't mind sharing it with you. It was $20 million loss this year after the downsizing.
Home Group's their auditor. I pulled him up here. I've read it on the air before. They've had consistent losses for the last 5 years, and the losses have just been trending upward.
They have. So I have been out in places like Greenwood, walking in these hospitals and talking to these people. And as I said, I had meetings yesterday. I'm really hopeful that this summer and as we go through the election process, we're not slowing down for next year, because somebody will need to be doing this. So I am very much on point with exactly what you're thinking.
Okay.
We need to get all our hospitals, our people that are receiving these cares, and all the rest of us, doctors and everybody else, in a room and figure it out.
Taking a break. We're coming right back with another segment with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. Please stay with us. With Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. So you got these three measures that look like they're going to happen. I say three is a way to address the health care financial situation state. Right. You got the $80 million grant program, which is going to help some, but when you got a Greenwood LaFleur scheduled to lose about $22-23 million, that's one out of 120-something hospitals in the state. Right. That's a quarter of that money for 1 year. Maybe it can sort of help them regroup, perhaps retrench, restructure, and pay the bills at the same time. You got this grant program for nurses. We do, and we're trying. We have about, we think, somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 nurses short. So we've got a grant program for nurses where we pay $6,000 every year on your debt and everything else to become a nurse as long as you stay in Mississippi. So we're starting on that. That takes a while. There'll be a good bit of push to expand the nursing program. Pearl River needs some additional. Mississippi University Women has a great nursing program. Gulf States has one. Most of these community colleges have a program. Yeah. So we're looking at their capacity. Some of them need a little bit more room. Some of them need more teachers. Teachers are harder to come by because, quite frankly, they make more money in the private market than they can teaching at a community college. And then there's the consolidation bill that allows the hospitals to pair up to consolidate. So I got to ask you a question. This is what I hear a lot from the public is there's a perception that this particular measure, this consolidation bill, would enable UMC to acquire hospitals, but it would not allow private hospitals to combine, to acquire, or be acquired. Can you talk about that? No. UMC is in Grenada and Lexington, I think. I think that's right. I think that's the only ones. They had several years ago, they got a bill passed that they could have these joint venture agreements, but that's never really materialized. So there's they're not going out and acquiring anything because they got to make the numbers work too. Just same problem. The same problem. I'm not at all worried about UMC taking over all of the rural health hospitals here. I think they will end up being mainly a community-based system. Yeah. So I don't think that's something we should really be concerned about. And UMC has its own issues, its own expense issues. You know, the governor vetoed like $50 million to redo their internal hospital where they teach doctors over there. Right. So I don't see them in an expansionist model. Okay. I'll see things like Covington and McGee going on, where I see these hospitals that are co-located in short distances from each other, amalgamating their delivery of services. That's probably the most likely thing is going to happen. I'm not at all concerned about that, and there's no quite frankly, in the Senate side anyway, there's no real impetus for an additional money for the University of Mississippi Medical Center to go be doing that. Okay. So and Senator Fittigang, I think, when this was being deliberated, discussed perhaps some combination with Forest General and another nearby institution. I don't remember which one, but I think he talked about that. There's one. There's the former Methodist. It's right down the street from Forest General, and I think you'll see some hub and spoke here, like where you may have a Forest General with 2 or 3 outlying places. That could happen. They're a county-owned hospital. Yeah. But there'll be an amalgamation. But what we want to do is have everybody make sure that we have a base delivery of services for rural Mississippi. That's what we need to have. And we have economic challenges, as you know, to do that and others. But we need to keep our eye on the ball there. And whether, what may work in Hattiesburg may not work in McGee. Yeah. The subject of Medicaid expansion has been a very hot topic, to say the least, since it's been available. And that began in 2014 when the Affordable Care Act extended coverage that the federal government would pay for to the able-bodied working adult group. That's what it is. It appears to me at this point that while that may cover and reimburse some hospitals for some present unreimbursed care, I don't think this fundamentally solves the problem.
No. And I've tried to say that before. People get running in a circle about, oh, goodness, we can't do that or that. But that's not the answer. The expansion of Medicaid is not the answer. At least in Mississippi, where we're looking at, we have certain pockets of things I think we can do better, like postpartum, which the governor has come on with and the House passed yesterday. That makes sense for working mothers to have that additional 12 months, and probably not only makes health sense, it makes economic sense because we keep babies out of the NICU. But, those are the things that you look at, something like that. But just a blanket expansion, it could be very expensive. The numbers are a little bit hazy. We first have to get our act together here before we ever start talking about anything like that.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about PERS. I'm worried about that. I think you are too. Very.
We were kind of surprised this year. We got a letter that said they were going to raise 5%. And when I looked at it, it got even, the more I looked at it, the worse it got, because turns out they lost like $4 or $5 billion this year on their investments. I assume you were not doing their investments.
I'm not. No.
That's good. But in any event, they lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they asked for a 5% increase, I think, which is about $250 or $300 million in that range of additional funds, which wouldn't make up for $5 billion losses, obviously.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I just want to explain. So the board has the authority to increase the employer contribution.
Right.
They decided as a board, as a body, to increase it by 5%. That's essentially increasing the state's taxpayer share of the money that we contribute to PERS.
Absolutely. It's like that's the only exception I know, that the legislature is the only one that can increase taxes. The exception is the PERS.
That's true, yeah.
So with that, there was some, I was not a party to this, but the House had some discussions with them, and then I got another letter. We had a number of other matters we were working on. I got another letter saying they were going to postpone that and study it through the fall and come back with something to the legislature next year. And so I'm anxious to see, what their solutions are on there. So obviously, we hope they didn't have another negative return like that. $5 billion is that's a lot to make up with working people's dollars.
And they're somewhat, we should point out, somewhat restricted on how they can allocate their assets.
Portfolio. I know there are some restrictions on it, but I would be hopeful that we don't have another loss like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave that up to them. They've got a board and the state treasurers on it and a bunch of others. So I'm hopeful that they'll come up with a positive solution. We have an irrevocable commitment to funding that.
Right.
So this is not a question about funding it or people getting their benefits. That's not the question. It's just how much is it going to be.
But the bottom line is increasing the employer contribution rate by 5% means that state spending increases to cover that with respect to state agencies are concerned. It also means that municipalities and counties and other public sector entities, their expenses go up.
That is correct.
All right, let's talk about the ballot initiative process. You and I have discussed that before. So I think the big sticking point between the House and Senate has been the signature threshold. The Senate, you talked about that last time you and I were on the program, wanted 12% of registered voters. That turns out to be about 240,000 signatures. The House's version is back down to what it was after an amendment, I think, yesterday, to the 12% of the ballots cast in the last gubernatorial election. That's about 110,000. So there's 130,000 or so gap between the chambers on this. Where do you see that going?
Well, I see it going to conference. The House passed the bill this year. The Senate passed the bill.
Yeah.
The House didn't pass an initiative this year. I have been for the initiative for a long time. And when the House didn't pass one, we had one passed in the Senate and sent over there. When I first saw the report, they had pretty much adopted the Senate version. It was pretty close, and they came out of committee that way. and I appreciate Representative Shanks and Senator Polk and Senator Johnson, all of them that have worked on that. Then apparently yesterday there must have been some change.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the amendment, but we were very close on the one that came out of committee, and I was hopeful that we'd put that to bed one way or another.
They pulled it back, so I guess the conference will have to sort all that out.
There will be a conference committee, and they'll get together, and I'm hopeful that we'll have an initiative process. They had made some good suggestions, like you can't approve abortion, for example, those kinds of things. There were several good suggestions from the House, so I hope that our conference committee will work something out and we get it on the ballot in November.
Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann has been our guest here. Appreciate you coming in, Lieutenant Governor.
It's good to see you, Gerard. I appreciate it. We're everybody watch. We're live down there. So when I came in, we put everything live, committee meetings, everything else. So y'all watch what we're doing, and we appreciate everybody's input. Email us, call us, send us a note, whatever.
Half an hour left on Middays. Please stay with us. We're in the Element Wealth Studios.